Ladies and gentlemen, breakthroughs don't come without preparation, and preparation often comes disguised as a test. You see, life has a rhythm designed by God Himself, where trials are not obstacles but tools of refinement. If you're going through a season of difficulty, uncertainty, or delay, take heart. It may just be the final exam before your elevation. Before every breakthrough, there is a process of refining, a reshaping, a preparation that often comes in the form of tests. These tests, orchestrated by God, are not designed to harm or destroy, but to mold us into the individuals He has called us to be. They refine our character, stripping away what hinders and building within us the strength and integrity necessary to steward the blessings He has prepared. The process is not always pleasant, but it is always purposeful. Imagine gold in its raw state. It may appear dull and ordinary, but beneath the surface lies untapped beauty and value. To bring that beauty to the forefront, the gold must go through the fire, a process of intense heat that melts away impurities. The refining fire doesn't destroy the gold, instead it reveals its purity and brilliance. Similarly, God allows us to face fiery situations, not because He delights in our struggles, but because He knows what lies within us. He sees potential where we see pain. He sees strength where we feel weakness. The tests we endure are His way of drawing out the best in us, shaping us into vessels capable of carrying His purpose. One of the primary reasons God refines our character through tests is to align us with His will. Often our desires, ambitions, and perspectives are shaped by our own limited understanding. We may hold on to attitudes, habits, or mindsets that are incompatible with the destiny God has prepared for us. Through trials, He reveals these areas and prompts us to let go. It might be a season of waiting that teaches us patience, a conflict that teaches us humility, or a loss that deepens our dependence on Him. Whatever the situation, it serves as a mirror reflecting areas of our character that need refinement. Refining tests also teach us obedience. It is one thing to declare our faith in God when life is smooth, but true obedience is revealed in the valley moments. Abraham's story is a profound example of this. When God asked him to sacrifice Isaac, the son of promise, Abraham faced a test that defied logic and emotion. Yet, in his obedience, Abraham demonstrated heart fully surrendered. That act fully. But act first not only positioned him for an even greater blessing. In the same way, the tests we face challenge us to prioritize God's voice over our own understanding, teaching us the kind of obedience that leads to breakthrough. Tests also refine our resilience. Life's challenges can feel overwhelming, and it's easy to question why we must endure certain hardships. But every test is an opportunity to build spiritual endurance. The Apostle Paul reminds us in Romans 5:3-4 that suffering produces perseverance, builds character. The very trials that seem designed to break us are the tools God uses to make us stronger. Each challenge we overcome is a testament to God's sustaining power and a stepping stone toward our destiny. Another crucial aspect of God's refining process is that it purifies our motives. Often we may pursue goals or dreams with intentions that are not entirely aligned with God's purpose. Perhaps we seek recognition, validation, or personal gain rather than a desire to glorify God. Tests expose these motives, challenging us to examine the why behind our actions. In the refining process, God redirects our focus, ensuring that our pursuits are rooted in humility, service, and a genuine desire to fulfill His will. God's refining work also prepares us for the weight of responsibility that comes with breakthrough. Many of us pray for promotion, influence, or blessings, but without refined character, those blessings can become burdens. A heart unprepared for success may misuse or mishandle it. God's tests ensure that when the breakthrough comes, we are not only ready to receive it, but also capable of sustaining and multiplying it. His ultimate goal is not just to bless us, but to make us a blessing to others. It's important to remember that the refining process is deeply personal. God tailors each test to address specific areas of growth in our lives. What one person endures may look different from another's journey, but the purpose remains the same: to transform us into the image of Christ. This transformation is not instantaneous. It's a journey marked by moments of surrender, growth, and revelation. Through it all, God's presence is constant. He walks with us through the fire, ensuring that we are not consumed but refined. In the end, the tests that refine our character are not signs of God's displeasure, but evidence of His love. He sees the masterpiece within us, and He is committed to bringing it forth. The process may be painful, but it is never pointless. Each test brings us closer to the person God created us to be, preparing us to fulfill the purpose for which we were born. So when you face the fire, take heart. God is at work, refining you for the breakthrough that lies ahead. There is a profound truth about walking with God. His timing is always perfect, even when it doesn't align with ours. One of the greatest tests we face in life is learning to trust in God's timing, especially when we find ourselves waiting longer than we anticipated or enduring seasons of delay. These moments are not merely periods of inactivity, they are divine opportunities to develop a deeper trust in the one who holds all things in His hands. Trusting God's timing often requires us to relinquish control over our own schedules, plans, and expectations. As human beings, we are naturally inclined to want things to happen according to our timeline. We set goals, create deadlines, and hope that life unfolds according to our carefully crafted agendas. But when God interrupts those plans or asks us to wait, He is testing whether we trust Him more than we trust our own understanding. It is in these moments of waiting that our faith is stretched and strengthened. Waiting on God is not passive, it is an active demonstration of faith. It requires us to remain faithful in prayer, steadfast in obedience, and unwavering in hope, even when the evidence around us suggests otherwise. Consider the story of Joseph in the Bible. After receiving dreams of his future greatness, Joseph endured years of slavery and imprisonment. From the outside, it may have appeared that God had forgotten him, but every step of Joseph's journey was preparing him for the fulfillment of the promise. The waiting was not wasted. It refined his character, taught him humility, and positioned him for the right moment when God's plan would unfold perfectly. Similarly, God often allows us to face delays to teach us the value of dependence on Him. In a world that thrives on instant gratification, waiting can feel like an unnecessary inconvenience. However, God's timing is not dictated by human standards. He sees the end from the beginning and knows what is best for us. His delays are not denials, they are divine appointments meant to align our hearts with His purpose. When we surrender to His timing, we acknowledge that His wisdom surpasses our own and that His plans are always for our good. One of the most challenging aspects of trusting God's timing is enduring seasons of silence. There are times when we pray fervently, seeking direction or breakthrough, and yet it seems as though heaven is silent. These moments test our perseverance and faith in profound ways. Do we continue to trust in God's faithfulness, or do we allow doubt to take root? The silence is not a sign of God's absence, but a reminder to rest in His promises. It calls us to trust that even when we cannot see or hear Him working, He is orchestrating every detail for His glory and our benefit. Another significant part of trusting God's timing involves recognizing that His delays are often a form of protection. We may believe we are ready for the blessings or opportunities we are praying for, but God, in His infinite wisdom, knows when the time is right. Rushing into something prematurely can lead to frustration, failure, or harm. By asking us to wait, God ensures that we are prepared to handle the weight of what He has in store. His timing not only ensures the blessing, but also equips us to sustain it. The waiting process also tests the authenticity of our motives and desires. Sometimes, God delays fulfillment to reveal whether our pursuit is rooted in selfish ambition or a genuine desire to glorify Him. When we remain faithful in the waiting, our hearts are purified and our focus shifts from seeking the gift to seeking the giver. Trusting God's timing transforms our relationship with Him, deepening our intimacy and reliance on His guidance. A beautiful aspect of God's timing is that it often results in unexpected blessings. When we trust Him, we open ourselves to possibilities beyond what we could have imagined. Ephesians 3:20 reminds us that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask or think. His timing aligns with His capacity to exceed our expectations, ensuring that the outcome is not only good but perfect. Ultimately, trusting God's timing is a declaration of faith. It says, Lord, I believe that You know what is best for me even when I don't understand. I trust that You are working all things together for my good, even when the process is uncomfortable. This kind of trust pleases God because it reflects a heart that is fully surrendered to Him. In every test of timing, God's goal is not to frustrate us, but to build our faith, refine our character, and align us with His will. not punishment, it is preparation. When the breakthrough finally comes, it will be clear that his timing was not only perfect, but also necessary. So, as you wait, hold on to his promises, remain steadfast in faith, and trust that he who began a good work in you will carry it to completion in his perfect time. Growth in life, particularly spiritual growth, is rarely comfortable. In fact, it often comes wrapped in seasons of discomfort, uncertainty, and challenge. While we may naturally resist such times, they are often God's way of stretching us, refining us, and preparing us for greater things. Discomfort, when embraced with faith, is a signal that God is at work, taking us out of the familiar and leading us into his purpose. When we experience spiritual discomfort, it is a sign that we are being pulled beyond our current limitations. It is human nature to seek comfort zones, places where we feel secure, in control, and unchallenged. However, these zones, while comfortable, can become traps that stifle growth. God, in his infinite wisdom, disrupts our comfort to draw us closer to him and to reveal dimensions of our faith, character, and purpose that we might otherwise miss. Discomfort is not a punishment, it is an invitation to grow. One of the key ways spiritual discomfort manifests is through seasons of change. God often calls us to step into new territories, be it a new job, a leadership role, or a deeper level of service in his kingdom. These transitions can feel overwhelming because they require us to leave behind the known and venture into the unknown. Like Abraham, who was called to leave his home and go to a land God would show him, we are often asked to take steps of faith without having all the details. This kind of uncertainty challenges our trust in God and forces us to rely on him more fully. In these moments, our faith is stretched, and we begin to see that growth comes when we let go of our need for control. Another way discomfort fosters growth is by revealing areas of weakness or immaturity in our character. Trials, conflicts, or unexpected challenges often bring out reactions we didn't know were within us. Perhaps we discover impatience, pride, or fear rising to the surface. While these moments can feel discouraging, they are actually opportunities for refinement. God allows discomfort to act as a mirror, showing us where we need his transformative power. As we confront these areas with humility, he works to shape us into his likeness. Spiritual discomfort also comes when God asks us to let go of things we have grown attached to, things that may no longer serve his purpose in our lives. This could be a relationship, a habit, or even a dream we have nurtured for years. Letting go is painful because it feels like a loss, but God's pruning always leads to greater fruitfulness. Jesus reminds us in John 15:2 that every branch that bears fruit is pruned so it can bear more fruit. The cutting away is never without purpose. It prepares us for greater impact and deeper intimacy with him. One of the most profound aspects of spiritual discomfort is the way it drives us into deeper reliance on God. When life is smooth, it's easy to rely on our own strength, wisdom, or resources. But when we face challenges that exceed our ability to handle, we are forced to turn to God. In the wilderness seasons where answers are unclear and the way forward feels uncertain, we learn to seek him like never before. It is in these times that we experience his faithfulness, his provision, and his sustaining power in ways we could not have imagined. Discomfort also teaches us perseverance. Growth is not a quick process, it requires endurance. James 1:2-4 tells us to consider it pure joy when we face trials, because the testing of our faith produces perseverance, which ultimately makes us mature and complete. The discomfort of waiting, enduring, and pressing on through hardship is part of the growth process. It builds spiritual muscles, strengthening our faith and resilience so we can stand firm in future battles. Another powerful aspect of discomfort is the way it shifts our focus. In times of ease, it is tempting to become complacent or distracted by lesser priorities. Discomfort has a way of stripping away distractions and clarifying what truly matters. It reminds us of our dependence on God and renews our focus on his kingdom. It shifts our perspective from earthly comforts to eternal purposes, reminding us that our ultimate goal is not temporary happiness, but lasting impact. As we endure spiritual discomfort, it's important to remember that God's purpose is always redemptive. He is not the author of confusion or chaos, but he allows discomfort to align us with his plans. Like a potter shaping clay, he presses and molds us not to harm us, but to form us into vessels of honor. The process may be painful, but the result is a life that reflects his glory In the end, spiritual discomfort is a sign of God's love and His commitment to our growth. He sees the potential within us and refuses to leave us as we are. The discomfort we experience is a reminder that we are on a journey of transformation, growth, and deeper intimacy with Him. So when you find yourself in a season of spiritual discomfort, don't resist it. Embrace it as evidence that God is working in your life, preparing you for the greater things He has in store. Life often brings challenges, but there are moments when the difficulties we face seem unusual, almost as if they've been specifically designed to test us in ways we've never experienced. These unique challenges can feel overwhelming and confusing, leading us to question why we're facing them at all. However, these unusual trials are often a clear sign that God is at work in our lives, preparing us for something greater than we can currently imagine. They are not random, they are purposeful, designed to refine us, stretch us, and propel us into our destiny. Unusual challenges frequently arise just before significant breakthroughs. They often feel unexpected or disproportionate to anything we've faced before. This is because they are not ordinary tests, they are divine appointments meant to strengthen us for the next level. Before God elevates us, He ensures that we are equipped to handle the weight of the blessing. The greater the calling, the greater the preparation required, and that preparation often comes in the form of challenges that demand more from us than we thought we could give. One of the reasons these challenges feel so intense is that they often target areas of vulnerability or weakness. These trials force us to confront parts of ourselves that we may have ignored or underestimated. For example, you may find yourself in situations that test your patience, humility, or ability to forgive. These aren't arbitrary tests, they are divinely orchestrated opportunities for growth. God uses them to refine your character and fortify the foundation of your faith, ensuring that you are prepared to sustain the blessings He has in store. Unusual challenges also reveal the strength of your faith and trust in God. It's easy to trust Him when life is predictable and manageable, but when unexpected difficulties arise, the true depth of your faith is tested. Think of the Israelites facing the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army closing in behind them. It was an impossible situation by human standards, yet it was an opportunity for God to demonstrate His power and for the Israelites to trust Him in a way they never had before. Similarly, the unusual challenges in our lives push us beyond our natural limits, creating space for God to reveal His supernatural provision and strength. Another hallmark of these challenges is the way they often involve opposition. You may find yourself facing criticism, resistance, or even betrayal from people you least expect. This can be deeply painful, but it is also a sign that God is positioning you for something significant. The enemy doesn't waste energy attacking what isn't a threat. If you're experiencing unusual resistance, it's likely because you're on the verge of stepping into something powerful that will advance God's kingdom. Rather than being discouraged, take it as confirmation that you are on the right path. Unusual challenges also teach us to rely on God in ways we never have before. When we face trials that surpass our own abilities, resources, or understanding, we are forced to depend on Him completely. These moments stretch our faith and deepen our relationship with Him. They remind us that our strength is not enough, but His grace is sufficient. Paul captures this beautifully in 2 Corinthians 12:9 when he says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." In the face of unusual challenges, we learn to lean on God's strength, allowing Him to work through us in ways that defy human logic. Another critical aspect of these challenges is that they often prepare us for opportunities we cannot yet see. What feels like an obstacle today may be the very thing that equips you for tomorrow. David's encounter with Goliath is a perfect example. Before David faced Goliath, he had already encountered lions and bears while tending his father's sheep. Those earlier challenges seemed unrelated to his destiny, but they were God's way of preparing him for the battle that would catapult him into his purpose. In the same way, the unusual challenges you face now may be God's way of equipping you for something greater than you can currently comprehend. Finally, unusual challenges reveal God's faithfulness. When you look back on the trials you've faced, you'll see how He provided, guided, and sustained you through each one. These challenges become testimonies of His goodness and power, serving as reminders that He is with you in every season. They also inspire others, showing them that if God brought you through, He can do the same for them. So when you encounter unusual challenges, don't view them as random setbacks or signs of failure. Instead, see them as evidence that God is actively working in your life. Embrace them as opportunities for growth. Trust Him through the process and remain steadfast in your faith. Remember, the size of your challenge often reflects the magnitude of your calling. God is not preparing you for the ordinary. He is preparing you for the extraordinary. Stay faithful, for your breakthrough is on the horizon. Life often brings us moments where the plans we've made, the goals we've set, or the paths we've carefully carved out suddenly feel uncertain or unattainable. These moments, though uncomfortable, are not random. They are divinely orchestrated opportunities to surrender control to God. Surrender is not about giving up, it's about giving over. It's a deliberate choice to trust God's wisdom over our own, to lean not on our understanding, but on His perfect plan. In surrendering control, we open the door to transformation, peace, and divine alignment with His purpose. One of the most powerful lessons about surrender is recognizing that control is often an illusion. We like to think we are in charge, that we can plan and predict outcomes, but life has a way of reminding us that this isn't the case. The unexpected detours, delays, and disruptions challenge our sense of control and force us to confront the limits of our abilities. These moments are not meant to discourage us, but to redirect us to the one who holds all things in His hands. They are invitations to release our grip and allow God to take the lead. Surrendering control begins with acknowledging that God's perspective is infinitely greater than ours. While we see only a small piece of the puzzle, God sees the entire picture. Isaiah 55:8-9 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." Trusting this truth is foundational to surrender. It requires humility, a willingness to admit that our understanding is limited and that God knows what is best. Surrender often comes into play when we face decisions or situations where the outcomes are beyond our control. Whether it's a health crisis, a financial setback, or a relationship challenge, these moments test our faith. Will we continue to cling to our plans, or will we place them in God's hands? Surrender doesn't mean passivity. It means actively trusting God to guide us. It means seeking His wisdom in prayer, listening for His voice, and aligning our actions with His will, even when the path ahead is unclear. One of the most profound aspects of surrender is the peace it brings. When we relinquish control, we release the burden of trying to make everything happen on our own. Jesus invites us in Matthew 11:28-30 to come to Him when we are weary and burdened, promising rest for our souls. Surrendering control allows us to step into this rest, trusting that God is working on our behalf even when we cannot see it. It frees us from anxiety and fear, replacing them with confidence in His sovereignty. Surrender also requires patience. God's timing is rarely the same as ours, and surrender means waiting on Him. This waiting can be challenging, especially when we are eager for resolution or change. Yet in the waiting, God is working. He is refining our character, teaching us dependence, and aligning circumstances in ways we cannot comprehend. The story of Hannah in the Bible illustrates this beautifully. Her longing for a child and eventual surrender to God's plan not only brought her the sound of life, but also aligned her life with a greater purpose on God's redemptive story. An important aspect of surrender is letting go of the need to understand everything. There will be times when God's plans seem confusing or even counterintuitive. Yet, surrender means trusting Him even when His ways don't make sense to us. This trust is not blind, it is rooted in His character. God is good, faithful, and loving, and His plans for us are always for our ultimate good, even if they involve temporary discomfort or challenge. Surrendering control is not a one-time decision, it's a daily practice. Every day brings new opportunities to trust God, to release our plans into His hands, and to say, "Not my will, but yours be done." This practice requires intentionality. It means choosing faith over fear, prayer over worry, and dependence on God over self-reliance. It is a posture of the heart that says, Lord, I trust you even in this. The beauty of surrender is that it positions us to receive God's best. When we let go of our need to control, we make room for God to move in ways that exceed our expectations. Ephesians 3:20 tells us that God is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. Surrender aligns us with this truth, allowing his power to work through our lives in extraordinary ways. In the end, opportunities to surrender control are opportunities to grow in faith, to deepen our relationship with God, and to align our lives with his purpose. They remind us that we are not in this alone, and that we don't have to carry the weight of life's uncertainties on our shoulders. God is in control, and he is faithful to lead us, guide us, and bring us to the place he has prepared. So, when you face moments that challenge your sense of control, embrace them as divine invitations to trust God more deeply. In surrender, you will find peace, strength, and the assurance that his plans for you are good. One of the most challenging experiences in a believer's life is enduring the silence of God. There are seasons when we pray fervently, seek guidance, and cry out for answers, only to be met with what seems like silence. These moments can feel isolating, confusing, and even discouraging. Yet, persistent silence from God is not an indication of his absence or indifference. It is often a profound invitation to deepen our faith, refine our trust, and align ourselves with his purpose in ways we may not immediately understand. God's silence is not a reflection of his love for us. The scriptures are filled with reassurances of his unwavering presence. In Hebrews 13:5, he promises, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. Yet, even with this assurance, there are times when we do not sense his nearness or hear his voice. In these moments, it's vital to remember that his silence is not neglect but intentional. It is an opportunity for us to grow, to seek him more earnestly, and to trust that he is working behind the scenes. One reason God may remain silent is to draw us into deeper intimacy with him. When answers come quickly, it's easy to focus on the solution rather than the relationship. Silence creates space for us to pursue him, not just his blessings. It encourages us to persist in prayer, not out of desperation, but out of a desire to know him more fully. David, often described as a man after God's own heart, experienced this dynamic. In Psalm 42:1-2, he cries out, as the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God. My soul thirsts for God, for the living God. When can I go and meet with God? This longing reveals a heart that seeks God above all else, even when answers are delayed. God's silence also serves as a test of our faith. Faith is not built in the absence of challenges, but in the presence of uncertainty. When God seems silent, we are given the opportunity to trust in his character and his promises, even when we don't see immediate evidence of his work. Hebrews 11:1 defines faith as confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Trusting God in the silence demonstrates that our faith is not dependent on circumstances, but rooted in his unchanging nature. Another reason for God's silence may be to teach us patience and endurance. We live in a world that values instant results, but God's timing operates on a different plane. He sees the end from the beginning and orchestrates events in ways that are beyond our comprehension. His silence is often a reminder that waiting is not wasted time, it is a vital part of his process. As we wait, he works on our hearts, shaping us into people who can handle the blessings and responsibilities he has prepared for us. Silence can also be a period of preparation. Before Jesus began his public ministry, he spent 40 days in the wilderness, fasting and enduring silence. This period of solitude and stillness was not wasted. It prepared him for the challenges and triumphs that lay ahead. Similarly, when God is silent in our lives, it may be because he is preparing us for something greater. The silence is a refining fire, burning away distractions and purifying our motives so that we are ready to walk in his purpose. It's also important to consider that God's silence may not be silence at all. Sometimes we fail to recognize his voice because we are looking for answers in a specific way or expecting him to speak according to our preferences. Elijah experienced this when he fled to Mount Horeb and sought God's presence. Similarly, God may be speaking in subtle ways through scripture, circumstances, or the counsel of others, but we must quiet our hearts to perceive Him. During seasons of silence, it's essential to remain faithful. Silence is not a signal to withdraw from God, but to press into Him. Continue in prayer. Immerse yourself in the Word and surround yourself with the community of faith. These practices sustain us and keep us grounded in His truth, even when we don't feel His presence. Finally, trust that God's silence will not last forever. Psalm 35 reminds us weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. God's silence is often followed by a revelation of His purpose, a demonstration of His power, or an outpouring of His blessings. When the silence ends, we often see that He was working all along, orchestrating events for His glory and our good. So, if you find yourself in a season of persistent silence, take heart. God has not abandoned you. His silence is an invitation to grow, to trust, and to rest in His faithfulness. Embrace the stillness as an opportunity to draw closer to Him, knowing that He is always near, even when He seems quiet. In His perfect time, He will speak and His voice will bring clarity, peace, and purpose to your journey.